Greek mythology tends to be a Key Stage 2 topic, so it will be anything from 7 to 11 depending on school. Traditionally, myths and legends are introduced in Year 3, so they're 7, and then they are revisited in Year 5, so when they're about 10. Roman myths traditionally are taught earlier on, and then Greek myths are visited later on. It depends.
Okay, why are they taught in separate ages?
The curriculum tends to be set so that things are revisited, but we try to make sure that we're not revisiting in exactly the same way. So we try to cover lots and lots of different myths and legends. So traditional English myths and legends like Robin Hood and all those sorts of things are touched on as well. And also down to teacher preference sometimes, because if the topic says myths and legends, it will be whatever the teacher feels most comfortable teaching. Okay, I would imagine that it started with the 1999 national curriculum, because as far as I know that's when it was implemented as a total thing that everybody had to teach. In terms of how long it's always been taught, I would imagine pretty much forever, because classics was always traditionally taught by teachers in terms of Roman and Greek and anything that was stemming from that, because in terms of morphology and learning about how language develops, people traditionally went back to those sorts of tales and how it all developed. But when the national curriculum was brought in 1999, it became statutory for it to be taught within the Key Stage 2 curriculum, so 1999.
Okay, good.
I always think that Greek myths are something that should be exciting. I always try to tell the children that they were the celebrities of that age. Nowadays, with Twitter and Facebook and every kind of modern convenience, it's the people that are in the public eye. But to the Greek people, the gods were their celebrities. So the Greek myths stemmed around almost like their celebrity actions. So like people follow what Lady Gaga does now, people followed what Aphrodite was up to, people followed what Hera went and did to her children. And so I try to introduce it like that. And I think that it's fun for them to update it in that way. So to think about, well, if it was in the modern world, how would those things be reported? Think about like newspaper articles and things. I love going at it in terms of like a drama aspect and getting them to act out parts of it, because there can be some quite exciting aspects to Greek mythology. I also think it's important to link it to the kind of stories that they're used to today. Is there anything that they can link it to that they understand? But they're quite exciting. They tend to go on quests and things, and the children like that. And then eventually we build up to writing our own quests. At one point I got the children to make little toilet roll puppets of the different characters. So they had like a little Medusa and a little Perseus. And we went out into the woodlands and they put the puppets around, and then they took pictures of them, and then they made storyboards on PowerPoints, and then they made their own quests of what the little puppets were getting up to in the grounds of the school. So I think there's lots and lots of creative ways of teaching it, and the more creative you are, the more excited they get about those types of stories, and the more excited they get about any stories, the better off they are when they're doing the writing themselves.
Well, thank you.
I think Greek mythology covers pretty much anything if you're prepared to take it that step further. You can introduce it in terms of geography, so do they know where Greece is? Do they know anything about the ancient Greeks? They take it into history. Do they understand what it was like in ancient Greece and why those types of stories and those types of myths were important? Because some of those stories are actually almost like their creation stories that you can take into bits of RE and how they link into more modern religion's creation stories. Can they find similarities between the idea of the chariot bringing up the sun instead of God created the world in 7 days and He created everything that came with it, and those types of ideas. Obviously you've got the English side of it in terms of writing the stories, you've got the drama, you've got dance, because of the way that you can act it out. I think the sky's the limit in terms of what curriculum areas you can draw it into. The more creative you are, the more excited they get about it, and then they come in and they've researched all sorts of things. So yeah, be creative. I tend to start off with looking at Icarus and Daedalus and looking at that myth, because I think that it's got a strong moral to it, and it's something that they can relate to, because it's the idea of a child and their parent and what they're prepared to do for their parent, but also in terms of it's very relatable because he wants to achieve something that no one else has ever done, and a lot of children want that as well. Maybe not in quite the same way, they want to fly too close to the sun, but they do things that it's because they want to achieve something new, and they end up getting in a mess because of it. And you can take it in that respect, and you can do a lot of PSHE around things that they may have done where they've got themselves into a situation because they have flown too close to the sun in that respect. And then we take it further and we look at Theseus and the Minotaur, because it's quite exciting in terms of the things that happen, but also it's very relatable for them, because as children they understand what it would be like if they were chosen to be sacrificed, and we do lots of writing, lots of drama around the idea of them being ready to be taken to the island to be sacrificed, when they're waiting to go into the Minotaur's cave, the labyrinth, actually going through the maze and getting lost, and the types of things that they might see and hear, and how scared they might be feeling, and then how relieved they feel at the end. We do all sorts of comic and storybook aspects of that. And then I tend to get them to go and pick a myth of their own, so you get all sorts of things from that. You have to tell them to be very careful, because some of the content of some of the myths is a little inappropriate, so it's always a case of I give them a little bit of guidance, but I try to let them explore the myths that they want to, and then they come back and then they've created that story in their own way, and then we talk about quests and those types of things. Yeah, I do. I think that Greek mythology is something that has actually become part of modern day popular culture. Things like Percy Jackson and all of those types of stories. And then he went on to like Heroes of Olympus, and the children are fascinated by it. And you actually find that looking at those types of stories in relation to Greek myths deepens their understanding. So we tend to read Percy Jackson and Lightning Thief alongside looking at Greek mythology, so that they can see how the modern take on it relates to the original myth. And you can bring in all sorts of ideas of how, despite the fact they're in different continents almost, and different ways of thinking, the Americanized version of it and the original Greek Olympus stories are very, very similar in the idea that it's heroes trying to take down big, bad titans and all the destruction that comes with it. And it's so relatable because in the real world, the titans are things that they can't control, and the children all have things in their lives that they can't control and that they see happening, like all sorts of terrorist attacks, and they see things in the news, and they see that as the titans, and they want to think that they can be the heroes, that they can go out and that they can make a difference. And I think it's really good for them to know and to have those kind of inspirational stories, because modern literature doesn't tend to have that idea of a hero as much in children's stories. Things like Diary of a Wimpy Kid are the exact opposite. They're about a child that is being bullied almost, that is the weakest child, and they've got to have that contrast that sometimes strength can come from anywhere, and they can take things on. And I think that with that opportunity, you tend to find that the children go home and they research the gods to that much detail. They come in and they tell me things that I have never heard in my life before, and I'm not even 100% sure that all of them are true, but they researched it in that much depth that they just enjoy it, and they're so excited by the stories. They always want to move on to the next Percy Jackson book. They always want to go on and read more in terms of myths and legends. They all create the most amazing quests and myths in their own writing. And that's because they feel like there's something that they can still relate to, despite the fact that they're 2,000 years old.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem.